diagram that I showed you, all those barriers need to be broken down in some way to allow the sharing. So in the paper, we talked about two sets of principles. One's on the left there, on your left, are principles related to how you have to organize the sort of the principles of the software. In other words, you have to allow people to be able to control their knowledge and not sort of leave that control to an organization, let's say. And then on the right side are principles about how you would have to make the system user-friendly, easy to use. So in the paper we say that there's a lot to do in developing this kind of second-order learning software focus. One of the other things we did in the paper is look at examples of systems that exist today that sort of meet or start to look at how to break down barriers. So I've listed a few of them here. The first one is Plex, which is a software prototype that was developed by some researchers in Holland. And the idea of Plex is that they see that they're also focused on that middle bubble, that blue button. And so they developed a system that's very individual-centric. You can take all of your knowledge and place it in one location, no matter what context you're in. But the problem with Plex is that you also need communities. If you want to do social learning, you can't just be an individual. You have to have communities or other people that you can converse with. So another example that tries to do that, tries to build across seams or across the boundaries of context is something called Discourse. Discourse was developed at the University of Hawaii. And the idea there was to say, let's break out of the course mode and allow people to share knowledge, even if they're in different courses. Not people in school, be able to have conversations about things that go outside of the course boundary. It's a really good innovation, but the problem is it doesn't build long-term relationships. It just allows people to discuss things, but there's no way of joining communities that may take that further. Another example is something called Beehive. Beehive was developed at IBM, and the idea was to come up with a Facebook-type system, but just for IBM. And it's a really nice system. It does some interesting things, but it only fits in that organization bubble. You can't bring in knowledge or individuals from outside IBM. It's only an internal or proprietary system. Then there's Facebook, or High Five, or all those kinds of systems. I'll talk about Facebook. But in all those friendware, as I call them, friendware systems, you don't really have the facility to support education. You can't bring people into a course. You can't facilitate things like course management activities that are necessary in education, so there's a missing piece there. And then the final example is obviously one that fits with the title of this talk, Claremont Conversation Online. And the idea there was, again, it has constraints, but in our case, what we were looking at in our university is that we have a non-residential campus. Maybe, I don't know how many, if there are a lot of residences here, but most people who come to our university travel in to take a class, and then they leave again. They're not living on campus, they're not spending time on campus, they're just coming in and out. So the chances of having knowledge sharing are really limited. People are in class, and then they might work in a group project, but essentially they just don't see each other on a regular basis. So in contrast, on the entrance gate of our university, there's a little brick wall or cement wall and there's a plaque. You've seen it. And the plaque says something like, I'm paraphrasing, the statement's a little longer. The plaque says the center of the college is great conversation. So the idea is that if you're in college or university, what you want to be doing is sharing knowledge. You want to be conversing with people and talking and getting lots of ideas and specifying your own ideas. But when it's a commuter campus, you don't have that opportunity. So the alternative is to try and do that with software. And so that's the idea of the Claremont Conversation Online, is to try and bring together the members of the campus community in conversation in an electronic format. So we've done some things. We use a software package called ELGG, which is it's not a very popular package, but what it does is it builds remember I was saying Facebook misses the educational component. ELG kind of tries to take Facebook and build in an educational facet to it, so that students could use ELG and feel like they're being, doing things like Facebook, but also be able to manage their class coursework around it. So what we've done over about a 3-year period is tested Claremont Conversation Online. And what we've learned is that essentially students like the concept, but they still don't build the conversations beyond courses or beyond semesters. They just we haven't figured out a way to get the software to help people to become more conversant over the years that they're in the program, or even beyond that. So in tackling this problem, we've been doing 2 kinds of research in combination. And one type is something that SAP worked on, which is action research. Action research is a little bit complex, but you can boil it down to this. The way you do research is you apply ideas in a real setting, not in a laboratory. You actually apply the ideas in a context, and you try and understand how those ideas predict what you try to accomplish by applying them. And you use the feedback to modify the thing that you're trying to do and test it again. So that's action research. It's really trying to take work out of the laboratory and into the setting that you think needs to be modified. And then there's design research. Design research is something engineers know a lot about. It's trying to build artifacts through using research as the mechanism to build artifacts. So instead of just kind of coming up with ideas out of the blue, design research says there are theories, there is knowledge that should drive how you design the next artifact. In this case, we're talking about software. Software is an artifact. It's something that's man-made, right? So the idea is that you use kernel theories to design software. And that's going to be helpful. And also, I'll try this again. Thank you so much. All right. We're not. So I'm going to talk a little bit about kernel theories. And in doing our lab work, research, so I've been saying, what we're trying to do is take research out of the lab and put it into the real world. And then I'm saying, but we're in the lab. Well, our laboratory is just, I had that earlier, we're a virtual lab. We don't do experiments inside our lab. We're a laboratory that tries to do real world experiments. So in doing our research, we've had to find kernel theories, right? If we're going to do design research, we need kernel theories. So we've identified multiple